Welcome to the artist lecture for set 6, which will be split in two. Thank you for tuning in to the video lecture as I am out of town. I really appreciate this ability for you guys so we can have this dialogue, still keep educating even though I'm not in the classroom. And then this will be helpful that you can actually pause me, make notes, think about it. And if you have any questions, message me on Canvas or send me an email. I should be fairly available for that for this weekend if you have questions. So set 6 is 217, and it's going to be split in half. So we're going to just talk about 217 today, and we'll talk about the other part on Tuesday when I return. So 217 is more concentrics, the mandala motif. The concept is the mandala motif can be used as a symbolic device. Mandala patterns are usually based on concentrically arranged elements. The key synetic trigger mechanisms are repeat, symbolize, and mythalize. So the studio action is to use mandala motif to produce a symbolic portrait in quotations. Place an image of a person or an object in the center space, the bullseye, of a series of concentric shapes. Arrange referential images around it, repeat and vary the units to create a visual, unique pattern. We want to create and tell something about our subject, the center and/or bullseye, by the arrangement of the images. So this is not just doodling and drawing a traditional mandala, but using that mandala motif, the kaleidoscope, the radial pattern to create a symbolic quote-unquote portraits. Now, the term portrait is being very loose here, where it doesn't have to be a person. And we want to make it interesting, which is why we talked about symbols on Tuesday. So before we get started, let's kind of talk about mandalas. So they're a spiritual and ritual symbol in Indian religions, representing the universe. Common use is become a generic term for a diagram, chart, or pattern that represents the cosmos metaphysically or symbolically, a microcosm of the universe. So they're sort of a palace of sorts that people enter. These are not just in Indian religions, they're used in Christianity, Islamic, Judaism. It's used in lots of different religions and other terms. So this concentric patterns are not unique, but that's kind of where the main emphasis of the mandala idea comes from, is from the West. So there's basically the basic form of mandala is a square with 4 gates containing a circle with a center point. This is going to be important when you think about your center point. And each gate is a general shape of a T, and they exhibit radial balance. They kind of go inwards, outwards. So there is religious significance. We need to kind of keep this in mind and respect this process as we are creating this assignment. So a yantra is a 2- or 3-dimensional geometric composition used in sadhanas, puja or meditative rituals. It's considered to represent the abode of the deity. It's their home, their castle, their palace. And they're unique, and they call upon the deity into the presence of the practitioner as they work through the elaborate symbolic geometric designs. So mentally, when you enter a mandala and you proceed through the center, you're guided through the cosmos to the essence of reality. So it's supposed to be very relaxing, spiritual, and sort of connecting yourself to the deity. So typically 4 monks will work together to create a single mandala. They kind of divide into 4 quadrants, each monk working on their own, and they kind of work together to come out. So they come from the center, your center point outward, and they kind of create the gates together. And there's a lot of symbolic energy around it. You can look at these colors, and there's also a link for other types of mandalas. You can see the T shape here. Here you can see a monk working on a sand mandala, and some working together. It's very tedious, and the sand is not permanent. So we have interpreted it very differently. So art therapist and mental health counselor Susan F. Fincher owed the reintroduction of mandalas into modern Western thought to Carl Jung. So he would draw something in his notebook every morning as a circular drawing, and he kind of was like, okay, what is this going? Why am I drawn to this circle? And then he realized it was a mandala, and it's about the self, wholeness, the personality, and all of which goes well is harmonious. So, bringing up Gestalt again, you know I love my Gestalt theory. Simple closed forms such as circles are quickly perceived and recognized as meaningful, so we like circles. Circles are whole, they're round, and because circles come forward as a confusing mass of random visual input, we kind of see something as known and familiar when we see something in a circle. People say that the circle is associated with health, physical and psychological development. People like circles. You think about your parents' face, breastfeeding, and all that stuff. To kind of, it's very innate in our being. Creating mandalas helps stabilize and reorder inner life. So we're going to look at some examples, some of which are going to be very helpful for the assignment and some are not. So each element that we put in our mandala motif for 217 has to be symbolic. It can't just be doodles, but we have to think about how the elements we have relate to the center. I really like this one, not just because it's dolls and I have an affinity for Barbie, but it's really taking the idea into something else. So you have this center circle of the dolls arranged with different objects, and there's different, and how everything fits together is sort of a physical mandala. And the circle design, you can see it's in a lot of craft work as well. Now, not everything has to be sort of uniquely, radial pattern like this, but maybe you take the idea and push it out and you do a photo collage where you have shapes and photographs fitting in the shapes. And this can be done by using a clipping mask in a shape. Kaleidoscopes are a good point of inspiration. Now, this isn't going to be a good one for the assignment because there's no symbolic imagery within here, but the colors and so the repetition might be of interest. We have this of the 12 zodiac signs. You can see you can do some photograph elements as well. You can take your mandala and break your composition a little further by adding a top and a bottom. Even take your imagery and sort of cut it up and take the idea into something else. Look at some student work. Now, you have the main object in the center and everything's drawn out. So the student, they like to work with the digital painting, and this was a character they created for a story, and they wanted to illustrate that. So this takes a lot of close placement and thinking about how everything works together. Very fun. So we'll talk about how to do this in both Photoshop and Illustrator. It takes a lot of, this whole set is going to be a little bit more technical, but you're also going to have to be challenged with the technical skill that you have to, technical curve that you will be approaching, and the symbolic conceptual curve as well. If you notice, all the elements are relating to each other. There's no arbitrary doodles, but everything is symbolically connected. So, what you're going to do next is you're going to start either the Photoshop or the Illustrator demo. You'll be able to pause and work on it as well.